Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Small Business Revolution podcast. Of course, I'm your host with my dad, my co-host, and business partner, Josh. How you doing today, Dad?
Good. How you doing, Kyle?
Oh, I'm doing good. We have a fun, exciting topic to talk about today.
Yeah, no, for sure we do. I'm actually super excited about it. I wanna precursor this a little bit. So this is a topic that is more for Kyle. This is Kyle's lane, right? Now Kyle's my business partner, but I want to take this opportunity to tell everyone like these when I'll talk about lanes a lot with Kyle. I have my lane, he has his, right? So but that doesn't mean I don't go in his lane. I'm in his lane all the time. I'm just a passenger, right? And I'm right, and a lot sometimes it's like I'm teaching him how to drive, and sometimes we're just chilling and he's driving and I don't know where we're going, but I interject, right?
Mhm.
You need to treat your employees the same way. I in the beginning it was a learning thing, and then but that's the social medias are his lane, right? So as time has gone on, I just I'm a passenger all the time and throw ideas out and talk about things and make decisions together. But beyond that, I just let him go. It's his lane. I'm not the person in that lane. That's not my thing. So I have to lean on him, and he always exceeds my expectations and blows me away. And I'm not a person that's easy to do with, right? So as we're diving into this stuff, I want people to really keep this in mind as you're listening to this, because this is not things that you need to know so you know how to these are things you need to know so you know how to manage the people properly. In the beginning, like you might have to do it yourself, like Kyle and I,
Mhm.
right? But in the end of the day, you need to understand how to do it so you can have somebody else do it for you and make it their lane so you can be a passenger as well, right? So let's dive into some of these social media things. I think we're going to hit one topic per podcast or one platform per podcast. So let's get into it and get it going. Kyle,
Yes.
this is your lane. What you got for us, buddy? What are we talking about today? Instagram?
So yeah, we're starting off with Instagram. I figured I wanted to start off with Instagram because out of all of these social media platforms that we're gonna really touch on, Instagram is kind of the all. Like it has everyone. It's probably the most middle ground that you'll find out of all the social media platforms because like there's a lot more of the older generations on Facebook. Newer generation is more on TikTok, where Instagram is now developed into the middle ground where people of all generations really go on Instagram. So that makes it harder to hit a specific target audience that you're looking for because there is everyone on Facebook, but it also makes it easier to reach people at a higher rate. The amount of people on Instagram is insane. And so for that reason, I felt like Instagram would be perfect to talk about first.
For sure. I'd also like to throw a little caveat in there. Like, there are people that use all platforms. Most people use all platforms, but depending on the platform they're in, they're also in a different headspace, right? What they're thinking about, what they're doing. When people go on LinkedIn, they're in a work headspace. When they're on, right? So it's it's also about the headspace they're in. And Instagram's, in my opinion, seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I feel like that's like you said, it's the most all encompassing. It has everyone from every generation, all like they all go on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Tons of these people go on TikTok. TikTok's huge,
Mhm.
but hey, we'll get into that in another podcast. But it's a different type of way to reach out to people. There's like no static information. It's all
Yeah.
video based, which is great, right? There's ways to get it out, but with Instagram, it's so flexible and so versatile, right?
Mhm.
It's not necessarily just the people that go there, it's also the flexibility and all the options and the different ways you can go about reaching people, and they all carry their own weights and values in the algorithm and stuff. Like that's from my perspective more of a technical back end. Like I don't do this stuff every day,
Yeah.
but this is really important stuff that business people should keep in mind when they're thinking about this, right? Because Instagram's good, but if you ever came to me and said we're not going to do TikTok, I would slap you, right?
No,
Or if you
yeah,
said
I
we're not
guess
going to
that's
do
what I
fake,
mean.
no, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that people accidentally don't get the wrong message out of this, right?
Mhm.
Like you have to do all socials, but if you don't know where to start with Instagram and then go from there.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone got kind of got that message, because this is really the case for all socials,
Mhm.
right? Every one of them is really good for its own thing, right? And even with some like Instagram's not the best for video. Video is
Yeah.
really important to Instagram and your algorithm. But if you're going to take video content in, people don't go to Instagram to take in video content. Typically, they'll go to TikTok,
Yeah.
right? But they do take it in on Instagram. They do take it in on Facebook and on YouTube, and you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I go to look for stuff, when I go to watch video content, I don't go. I usually don't go to YouTube. Most people do though, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just goofy and old. So, all right,
But
I just want to interject a little bit,
yeah.
and before you really grabbed the reins and took off, I want to throw a
Mm-hmm.
couple caveats in there, like you do for me.
Yeah. 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 Everything you said is true. Instagram, I feel like is one of the easier ones to understand on how to post on it and how to really use it. They make it very easy with like a lot of their analytics stuff, which we'll dive more into later on in the podcast. But the reason I think Instagram is the one that you should start with if you're not really familiar with social media, although you do need to eventually expand into all of every social media platform, is because of the fact that it has literally everyone is on Instagram. There's the amount of people that are on Instagram is not it's very far and few between, and you'll be able to hit every generation on Instagram, where normally maybe like everyone is on Facebook, but the majority of younger generation doesn't spend their time on Facebook, and the majority of the older generation doesn't spend their time on TikTok. Those are just using those two examples. Like it's so Instagram everyone is on the majority of the time. It's the perfect middle ground, and so yeah.
And I'd also like to say that these are not just big bold statements by Kyle. These are based on our personal experiences with our business.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's information. Nothing you're saying is going to should
Hmm.
shock people, but this is we're like we when we make statements, it's based on our experience with our business and what we see in our interactions with people
Hmm.
throughout our business on all platforms, right?
Yeah,
So
and
I'd
plus
also like to
also
throw
data
that
on
out.
top of that from
This
just
is not
regular
like
data, not even just ours. Yeah.
yeah, this is not some data that Kyle picked up somewhere along the way and is just spitting it out like it's truth, right?
Yeah.
We're very careful about that stuff.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, 100%. And our first real big topic, I feel like I've been touching on this whole time, is why Instagram really matters for your business. And it's weird when you say it like that because all social media really matters. We've touched on that on many numerous podcasts. And I feel like we did a really good job of covering that here in the beginning stages of this one and why it's so important and why
yeah.
it's so vital. But in case you haven't watched
Well,
any other podcasts and this is your first one, I'll go over a little bit on why social media is important. Um,
right. Well, it's like this. They're all important. You can't live without a heart,
mhm.
but you can't live and function without a brain.
Yeah,
You can't live and function without a liver or a, you know what I mean? So like look at social media like that. Like they're all
exactly.
important pieces,
Hmm.
right? And it depends on what you value most importantly first, right?
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, social media is very important for your business, just on a more grand scale. Not even just talking about Instagram. Like I said, if this is your first time with us, I'll break it down for you a little bit. But if I'm not going to go super in depth on this topic since we covered it like multiple times in the past. So go back and watch other podcasts.
Yeah,
But
over like the last 8 podcasts, I think we talked about it 3
yeah,
times. 2
yeah, because
times. Yeah.
this is something that we're very big on and we're very big proponents on. It's free marketing. Like you don't even have to spend money to get people to view it. Like there is the ads, which we'll talk about later, which I know is something that you're very keen to talk about. The ads on that kind of stuff. I know, but it's free marketing. You don't actually like paying for it. That's a whole different ballgame. But if we're just talking about the free aspect of it, then you can't get that anywhere else. Social media has really taken over the marketing game from like when you used to watch TV and you would see ads. That's now social media, and it's the best way to get your brand out into the world, and especially for small businesses where we can't a majority of the time go out and buy a TV ad because you're a smaller business. And if you're watching this, you're probably just getting started or you're very interested in doing it. Those are the people that we're making it for. You're not going to have the budget right away, 95% of the time, to go out and buy a TV ad or start spending money on ads or putting it in the local newspaper. Like those things are starting to become a little bit more outdated now. Besides the Super Bowl, those one that one is but that's a different conversation for another day.
Yeah, we don't need to get
But
into that.
those are more of old forms of media that have kind of hit the back burner now. That I mean, how many people really read newspapers anymore? Normally,
Right.
you would
They're
put your ad
now
in a newspaper.
they're
Newspapers are
all
Instagram.
right. It's all still super relevant though. Like
Hmm.
it's just not as it's not top tier anymore.
Yeah.
Like all these forms of media and advertising work still,
Hmm.
right? TV advertising works. You need money,
Yeah.
right? But it does work especially if you know what you're doing and you're putting up good ads,
Yeah.
right? That's
100%.
always the catch is the content
Hmm.
or the ad copy. That's always the catch, right?
Yeah.
You could have the best plan in the world that like anyone would be wildly successful with, and you're like, I got it. But if you don't have good ad copy, it's not going to work.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's that fusion, and now the old is evolving into the new as well, right? Like very very like daily, that stuff is changing. We talk about all the time. Old is transitioning to the new. TV advertising is like, who really wants to do that? Some businesses it's really important for, especially local businesses with just a brick and mortar. Depending on the industry, that could be really important, especially if you can afford it and your margins and whatever,
Hmm.
right? But all that aside, right? Now everything's streaming. Everything is like I'm not gonna list them all up, but everything is streaming, right? We own like I feel like 20 streaming platforms that we use. But my point is like everything is streaming. And then a lot of the services they still have commercials,
Hmm.
right? But here's the catch: you could do all this free stuff that and take the analytics from that from the one or two ads that really pop, and then you could take those that didn't cost you any money to find out that they work and that people love it, and then turn those into ads and go to TV streaming companies, right? Like YouTube and what's the one that we were watching last night? Fubu, maybe I don't know. Anyways, they all you
Oh,
could go and
Fubu.
advertise and do commercials and use your analytics and the keywords and the da 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 and there's a way that they mesh it and
Hmm.
your ads are only showing to the people that your ads are relevant to
Yeah.
based on all the same analytics that you have in your from your social platforms, right? Because they break it down the same way, dude. It's like by age and by this and by this,
Hmm.
right? So like they break it down the same way, and then it's really super dope, right? So like when we sit there and watch TV, and we're like watching TV and ads pop up, I don't walk away from the TV because they're interesting because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's actually really cool.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's so things have evolved so much, like and things are just gonna keep evolving, right? The OG stuff, it works. But I'm looking at like the new age versions of those,
Yeah.
right? Which is that's kind of more my lane because I've used all the old stuff and was very successful with it in many different types of businesses that
Hmm.
I ran, right? Several businesses I ran. So now it's different, right? So now it's what does it look like to start sliding into that now? We're right. So
Yeah. And
um
I think the big point with that is normally on Instagram when you're scrolling Instagram, it's kind of like reading a newspaper. When you're watching reels on Instagram, it's kind of like watching TV ads. It's really a lot of it is just really substituted the need that has been filled by the the TV and the newspaper slowly starting their decline. Just because we're progressing as a society and more
hmm,
technology, that's always going to happen. Just like who knows, maybe we'll have this conversation in 30 years and social media will be gone and will be replaced by something new for advertising. You know what I mean?
it's gonna be gone in less than 15 years.
Yeah, that's just how it works. But right now it's hot.
That's it's not going to be gone forever, but it's going to evolve. Everything's evolving to AI
Definitely.
and all
Yeah.
this stuff. So it's in 10 years, I don't like and definitely in 15 years social media is going to look nothing like it looks like
Hmm.
right now,
Yeah, it doesn't even look like
right?
it did
It's going
like
to
10
probably
years
be
ago
more
when it
of a
all started.
direct connection with like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um anyways, I don't want to get into all that kind of projecting and because there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff out there about it, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's
But I mean, even if you look like 10 years ago on Instagram, you couldn't post, there was no such thing as
no.
reels. There's not really a lot of video posting. It was one picture per post. Like it was no stories, nothing like that. It was very basic. And now it's completely evolved into a brand new thing.
It's
And the reels
crazy
were
that a thing
influenced a lot by
started
TikTok.
it's crazy that a thing started so people could just chat and show each other like pictures of their dinner. Like, look how beautiful my lunch
Yeah,
is. You know,
exactly.
like Twitter and TikTok and like all these places. Like that's what it was back in the day. Like a lot of people did that kind of stuff. It
Mhm.
was really simple, weird stuff, and now it's
Yeah.
evolved into these like massive marketing platforms over the course of like 10 and 15 years. So to think that it's not going to drastically change again over the next 10 to 15 years, especially with the implementation of AI, people are crazy, right?
Yeah,
But
100%.
Instagram, but having the data, being on Instagram and all these other social platforms, the bigger the platform, the more of a bite it has in your niche, right? Cool. But now the other thing is it's also niche specific, right? Some niches like B2B stuff, we're B2B, we're on Instagram all the time. But your B2B may not be the best place to go after customers and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. You should still be on Instagram. It might not be the first one you go to. If you're like this really super hyper specific niche company, right? Like petroleum companies that are going out to get new customers, they're I mean, should
Yeah.
they? Sure, they absolutely should, but I don't but it's not it's a different type of an approach, I
Mm-hmm.
guess is my point.
Yeah, really picking what social media you go to is really dependent on your target audience and who you're really planning on targeting more, and that's the
Right.
one that you should start with, or on the complete inverse of that, the one you feel most comfortable with. If you don't really use social media that much and you use one platform more than the others, start
Mhm.
there, because just because there's maybe only a smaller percentage of the younger generation is on Facebook, there's still a percentage of the generation that's there, and that's something that you can start with until you start getting comfortable with it, and then transition to other um, outlets and starting to transition over to Instagram and then over to TikTok
Right.
and over to all these other places that we're going to be talking about. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well, I guess that was kind of the tie-in that I was going to do, right? I was going to
Mhm.
make like so petroleum company, they're not going to find their customers on Instagram, right? Maybe, but think about it. The younger generation spends a lot of time on Instagram, right? So we know the younger generation spends a lot of time on Instagram. They don't really get into a lot of other stuff like LinkedIn and unless it's for their job,
Yeah.
right? But they're employees. It's not the company. Like if a big petroleum company goes on and markets on Instagram and like the right way, just the free stuff, getting it out there, doing things properly, not just putting a post today up, some static posts, like doing things and really working it. All the younger generation, when young people have ideas or they want to open a business that's petroleum based, that they need a petroleum base for, or if they want to do this or they want to do this or they want to do this, who are they immediately gonna think of? The
Yeah.
petroleum company that's been all over Instagram forever. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They put out funny videos, they put out interesting information, they do this, they do that, right? That's where they're gonna go. That's where they're at least gonna be in the conversation. That's my
Yeah.
point, right? Because the young people, here's what businesses fail to understand, right? I'm a B, like we're B2B company. The people that we want to do business with right now are on all these platforms. You
Hmm.
just got to find them. But guess what? The next generation of people that we want to deal with, like in the next 2 to 10 years, right? Guess where they are?
They're on Instagram.
They're on Instagram, hanging out, like whatever. You know what I mean? But we're getting in front of those people, right? Like this is a long game. This is long. You'll get some short term gain from it, but this is a long game, right? You play the long game and eventually it will pop and one day something's going to happen and you're going to go, "Oh my god, what the frick?" Like,
Yeah.
right? Like that's how it works. There's
Hmm.
no overnight stuff. It's not overnight. But everybody needs to be on. Like I said, even that super hyper specific niche business like a certain specific type of petroleum company, everybody should be on. It doesn't matter, right? I can give anybody a very good reason, and I don't want to say a 100% uh unarguable thing that they can win, but I'm gonna say 99% of niches need to be on, and I'll argue with anybody. I'll have that
Yeah.
that debate with anybody,
Hundred
right?
percent.
So
Yeah. 100%. Well, I guess so. I mean, we talked a lot about more general social media stuff in the last little bit,
yeah,
so let's steer this back to the to the Instagram conversation now, I guess.
yeah. Sorry, I just
Oh no, you're good. It was me too.
we're getting ready to get into this a social media chunk, right?
Hmm.
And I just wanted to set it up properly, like, because this is not just Instagram. Every social media one moving forward, like, it's all the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all the same mentality. It's all the same thought process. So
Mhm.
I think I'm glad we took a couple extra minutes to talk about
No,
some
I
of this
agree.
stuff
Yeah.
because we laid out the groundwork really well for
Mhm.
everyone. I hope. If we didn't, let us know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Well, the first thing that I really want to start diving into is creating a visual brand on Instagram, and um, I think the understanding of brand to the majority of people, especially if they're just starting, isn't really something that it gets misconstrued along the way a lot of times, and it's not really thought about in the right way. Your brand is exactly what you want it to be. Your brand is you. Like, that's what your brand is. Like, your branding is you and how you want your company to come off to everyone else. So if you want to be, like you were saying, like if you want to make funny videos, then do that. There's not funny posts. Do that, because
Yeah.
then you'll, if that matches what your client base likes. Like if you're like, okay, the younger generation, they love when people make funny videos and jokes in their ads and all that kind of stuff, and those are the people you're targeting, then yeah, absolutely do that, and that's your brand. But the issue really comes in with branding is when you start switching up your branding a lot, and it's like, here's a funny video, now here's a serious video, here's a video trying to pull on your heartstrings, now here's another funny video, because then your audience that you've cultivated doesn't really know how to feel and how to identify with you and your page. And that's a problem that a lot of people get into when they're starting to talk about branding. Is that they really fall in that pitfall where it's like, oh yeah, like we're a huge company, we've really made it being funny, like awesome. We did a really good job. We built up our social media really well, but by being funny. Now let's start mixing in other stuff, and that's okay. That's cool. You want to mix in other stuff. You don't only want to post one thing, when we'll touch more on that later, because that's another big thing. But once you start throwing in a different brand and then a different brand and then a different brand, that's when the issue starts to come in. Like, you can diversify your content without switching your brand, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, you can keep your brand voice the same. It's yeah, so like having all that mix is good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And funny videos and this and that. But it's, you need to figure out, like, before you start expanding, you really need to solidify like your brand voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not colors and shit, like your brand voice, who you are, how you talk about things, how you want your business to say, okay, right now it's just Kyle. We had this conversation. It's just me and Kyle, right? Kyle, what do we want this to look like moving forward, right? What do we want people to see? Blah, 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 blah. What do we want them to feel when they see it? When they read content, blah blah blah, and then we went from there. Once we got that kind of like hammered out and like played around with it and got it just with like basic information about the company, things like that, putting those kind of posts out, kind of starting to get a feel for it. Then once we got that stabilized and we're like, cool, we're really comfortable with this. Then we started adding video content. Then we started adding other information and
Exactly.
this and that and this and that, and going funny and going serious, and then
Mm-hmm.
call to action and no call to action, and mixing things in and throwing things out for specific customers on our page and tagging them with it,
Yeah.
right? Like all kinds of stuff that seems really random, but it was a slow build up. It was a semi slow build up because we had to figure out what our actual brand voice was, right? And then as we implement new things, how do we implement it into that thing? So things don't, so that way everything on our page, even though there's a bunch of random stuff on our any of our socials, you go look, there's a ton of stuff, and it'll look really random, right? At first, but it's very systematic, very methodical, right? And more importantly, as you go down the page and you don't even look that deep, you're just like, wow, this is a bunch. There's videos and this and that and this and that. Everything flows nicely, and everything sends the same exact message with the same voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the most important thing on social media, right?
Yeah.
You have to put you into it. You can't just put your company on top of social media and say, okay, run with it. You have to put yourself in social media and then slowly pull in your company while you're figuring out your brand voice over the course of, it could be a day, it could be a month. It's your pace,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But you slowly bring it in and figure out your brand voice, and then and then you go from there.
Yeah. Like what we do is with our business, the people that we're really marketing to, we post more of uplifting and helpful content. That's kind of like our main focus, just based on the people that we do business with. That's kind of the atmosphere, that's
Yeah.
kind of the aura. And so we really started to trend our brand voice into like positive quotes, um, fun facts, like that kind of
Positive
stuff, where it's more
affirmations.
like
Oh yeah.
uplifting and helpful stuff, because that's how we want to be portrayed when we're talking to these people. And so that's what we're going to portray on Instagram, because that's genuinely, I mean, that's who we are as well. And so those things are very important, when, because you don't want to, the another issue that people have with brand voice is you don't want to have your brand voice be something that you're not. Like if you're not the openly laughing out loud, joking kind of guy, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? But you don't want to make your brand voice that, because that's really going to set
Right.
set you back, because you're going to hate doing social media because that's just not who you are. And so you have to make your brand voice you, not
Yeah.
not a you that you want to be, not because you think it's going to succeed, because then that's when the pitfalls are going to come in. You're going to hate doing social media and you're never going to want to do it, and then your business is going to suffer because of it. And so that's a
Absolutely.
huge that's a huge stipulation that I also wanted to make sure and add in there, because that is very important to people that want to really start tackling social media, which is imperative. And especially when we start talking about video content, you have to look like that you're in it, like you enjoy it, or else it's never going to perform well if you look miserable while you're doing it.
100%.
I guess the next thing is just how to create engaging content on Instagram in particular. It's a lot of just
Talk about Kyle's lane. I'm gonna sit
um,
back and relax for this one.
so what I do is we have a mixture of static posts, which is just like your regular post, like a picture that you see, and then video posts, where it could be either one of us talking, or uh, we're both talking on a video, or it's just like a quote with some graphics flashing around it with a song over it. Um, and that creating effective content isn't just what's in the content itself, is also how you use it. And so what we do is we kind of have like a formula. We're like, all right, this is the stuff that we want to post that we deem is good for this because of our brand voice. And we kind of pick and choose. Like, we're like, all right, I'm like, all right, this day I'm gonna do this. I haven't done this in a few days. I don't have like a systematic thing like Mondays or this, Tuesdays or this, because then it starts to feel very calendary. I can't think of the word. It's definitely not calendary.
It doesn't come off free flowing.
Yes, so it comes
And
off free flowing. Exactly.
right.
That.
So the algorithm will pick that up too. You
Hmm.
don't want to look like anything you do in business online,
Hmm.
right? You don't want to look like a bot,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to look like a bot because then it'll jack up your algorithm a
Yeah.
little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into that anymore. But
Yeah.
everyone listening to this should know what it is. What I
Hmm.
mean, if you don't, please go look it up right now.
Yeah. 100%.
We'll wait for you to do that. Go ahead. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, like, creating engaging content is it's in the beginning when you're just starting, it's a little bit difficult. Just because you don't know what you're doing
Right.
and you
Like,
don't know
how
what
about
works.
this? When we started, we're like, okay, we want to do static posts,
Hmm.
right? We're like, we're gonna do static posts, then we're gonna go into this next, right? So we just started doing static posts. We didn't do every post exactly the same, but we decided on a format
Hmm.
for all the static posts, right? So they all had the same feel and vibe, right? Like they weren't all the same color, but say one type of post, they're not necessarily all the same color, but they all this certain type of post has a solid background and maybe some extra little thingies, right?
Yeah.
Um, because then we do that, we're like, all right, this is getting some traction, but then we can make a change after we have some info, we can make a change. And maybe instead of doing a solid color background, we change to like a multi crazy looking background,
Yeah.
right? With a different type of format, and then see how that does. But now we'll have a comparable. Now we have an A and B, right?
Exactly. And
If you don't have something systematic for yourself set up for the way,
yeah.
like logically set up, then you're not going to have a way to compare either,
Hmm.
right?
So
But how do you do that and look
yeah.
not like you just set it up for like 6 months to just run all this stuff
Hmm.
at certain times? How do you
Yeah.
make it not look like that? That's the catch.
I think
So
the biggest thing for making engaging content is kind of what you just touched on, and I'm going to expand on it a little bit because this is what I did. Was you don't know what's going to be engaging with your audience. Like, I can be like, this is what I do, but your audience might not be engaged by the stuff that I post. The best way to
yeah,
figure out
even the stuff
how
we
to get
think, the stuff
what.
the stuff we think is gonna blow up doesn't blow up, and the stuff we don't think is gonna be like super interesting,
Hmm.
it like pops off.
Yeah,
So
100%.
even if you like, it doesn't matter how much you understand. There really still is no way to like this is
Hmm.
gonna work until you have A and B's to go against.
Yeah, and
Even
then
once you do, that still doesn't mean that
mhm,
doing this other thing isn't better, right? It's
yeah.
just trial and error, trial and error. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, no, you're good. But
Don't
the
worry.
biggest thing to do is, like you just said, is trial and error, and go from, all right, I'm gonna post, say I'm gonna post a motivational quote today, and then tomorrow be like, all right, I'm gonna post. But you can't just take one post versus one post and be like, yep, this is what they like better. That's also something that you cannot do. This is like, it takes time to really figure out what your audience likes and enjoys. It takes more than one post. If you remember back to your science classes in high school, and I'm sure in college. I didn't take any science classes in college, but I think I took one. But if you think back to those, like the like hypotheses and testing out your theories, like you can't just do it once and be like, yep, that's enough, because the sample size isn't big enough. You need a big sample size. So you do it for a little while, and then you go back and look at the analytics, which Instagram has some great analytics tools that you go back and look at, and you're like, okay, this didn't do good. Why didn't this do good compared to this one? All right, okay, well, here's three that are kind of similar that did well. Here are three that kind of similar that did bad. So you're like, all right, I'm not going to do anything I did on this one again, and I'm going to go with these ones. And then you post those, and if they continue to do well, then congratulations, you found something that's effective. It's really like, it's not easy, but it's easy in the sense of you'll be able to figure it out easily when you actually dive into the analytics and look at it. That part is the easy part, because you'll be able to pick out exactly what worked and what didn't. The hard part is trudging through that first 30 days before you start diving into your analytics, or the first 60 days, or the first 90 days. And that's where it gets difficult, is just trudging through and kind of shotgun posting stuff, and just scattering around trying to figure out something that works and it is engaging for your audience. And that being said, I mean, after a while, that could not be engaging anymore, and then you have to figure out something new that's engaging. And you can listen to any influencer talk about social media as much as humanly possible. They will all say the same thing. Eventually, what you're doing is going to die out, and you have to find something new. And so it's just a
It's
matter of
like,
finding what your people like and going from there.
yeah, think of it like a one hit wonder.
Hmm.
It's the same thing,
Yeah,
right? There's like every popular artist was a one hit wonder at some point, right? But they just figured out how to capitalize properly and continue their career,
exactly.
right? Oh, this was a hit. Well, I'm gonna make more music like that. And then people are
Hmm.
like, oh, that was a hit. That's awesome. They just keep doing what they want to do because like I know what I'm doing and I people are gonna keep buying my music because I just make the coolest creative stuff. No, they
Yeah.
like that. If you know they like that thing, why would you put up a different thing and be like, no, I'm this is what I'm selling you now. Now you get this, right?
Yeah,
So
think of every trend on any social media platform ever. It lasts around for a while, and then it goes away. And then you get to go back on TikTok or on Instagram a few years later and see people talking about it. They're like, "Do you remember this trend?" You're like, "Oh my god, it took over the internet for a few weeks, and then it's gone." It's
yeah,
that same mentality where eventually what you're doing is going to stop, and so you need to find something else to replace that.
yeah,
And if you
and
just
it's
keep
yeah,
doing the same stuff over and over and over again, you're gonna lose your retention easily.
right. And like, okay, so the work we do a lot in the dance industry. We
Hmm.
work with dance studios, right? I
Yep.
think we said that before. But
Hmm.
so like there's a lot of trends that like it's not hard to find trends,
Yeah.
right? I'm 45. I'm gonna be 46.
Hmm.
Right? And I was like, oh, there's like all this stuff going on in music. Like, so dance is music heavy, whatever, right? There's a trend, like, and a new artist was getting ready to drop an album. And I was like, Kyle, I'm like, this person's song is gonna be a trend on TikTok. We need to figure out a way to make this work for our business to make sense,
Hmm.
right? We deal with dance studios, right? But we deal with dance studios for like, you know, age 2 through 18, right?
Yeah.
And the artist was not a conservative family type art. He is, but he's not. You know what I mean? And it was just really tough for us to come up with a thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, whatever, man. We can't do this and not look like
Hmm.
right, like bad,
Without breaking our
without putting
without
ourselves in a
breaking our
bad light.
brand voice.
Yeah, we couldn't. Yeah. No matter what we did, it was against who we are and our
Hmm.
brand voice. So we just didn't do it, right?
Yeah.
And then like 5 days later, Kyle came in and he goes, Dad, you were right. He goes, that shit is all over TikTok. It's all
Yeah.
over everything.
Hmm.
He's like, man. I was like, dude, I know, but we could have jumped on it early. It's not hard to take a step back and really, if you have your finger on a pulse in something, that's a music thing. It doesn't have to be that. But you know, like a lot of trends now is all video content
Yeah.
based traditionally. That stuff blows up more, and it's all got background music and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of other ways to approach it. It's all about your business and your what you like to do and what you don't like to do. But dude, like even if you're like, I don't know anything about trends, I'm not like Josh, I'm a 45, 50-year-old guy, but I don't give a shit about music and what's going on in the world, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Then get a Kyle. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you could just grab a Kyle out of thin air and be like, dude, what's super popular right now? Talk to me about trends,
Hmm.
right? Grab like your niece or nephew that's 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, right? And be like, hey, let me take you to lunch. I want to pick your brain for an hour about social media. They're like, okay, cool. They love social media.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone. I don't know of a teenager up to 25 years old who genuinely does not like social media,
It's very rare. Yeah.
especially like Instagram and TikTok, like
Hmm.
YouTube. Like so grab people in your life like that and just pick their brain,
Yeah.
right? The only thing you're gonna do is learn,
Hmm. 100%.
right? There is no downside to it.
Hmm.
You get to spend some time with something you care about, and
Yeah.
you get to learn. That's gonna help your
100%.
business.
I guess so. The next thing that I really want to talk about here is the story feature on Instagram and how to really effectively use stories. So the nice thing about stories is they're up for 24 hours and then they go away. So you can turn them into highlights and pin them to your page. And that stuff is obviously really useful for when you're a small business, because if you put like more of like a call to action addy kind of post up, you can pin that to the highlight on your page. If you want to know how to do that, there's actually a video on this channel talking about it. And if you're listening through Spotify or one of our other systems, just go to YouTube. We have a whole video on how to do that up, because we had a lot of people struggling that on our with our business. So we showed them, we sent it to them, and they found that very very useful, because it's a very important tactic. Like what we were using it for was links, because with Instagram you can't put links in descriptions or anywhere else on a post. So the only way you can put a link on Instagram is either in your bio or through a story. And so we're trying to teach them how to do that, and then how to pin it to your page, so that way, like if someone goes on your page and like, oh, cool, then they click that, and then a nice little graphic pops up with the link on it. That's what we're trying to teach them how to do. But
Yeah,
stories are really valuable in the sense also that stories hit a wider reach of people. Normally, people who wouldn't view your account could see your story, and especially they added that there's a new feature on Instagram that they added not that long ago, where it's like post a picture with your boyfriend if you've been dating for 5 years, and you can click that to make a post, but it also shows you like the top Instagram story posts based off of it, or people that you're following based off of it. They've really evolved stories a lot over the last year. Instagram stories have changed a lot to where you can do multiple different things that you can't do with reels and their regular posts. And actually, Instagram's pretty unique with their story feature, because everyone else is starting to adopt their stories after Instagram made theirs. But Instagram's by far, you can do so many different features with it and reach a whole separate audience with just your stories that you wouldn't normally even get with your reels and your static posts. Um, yeah, stories are insanely useful. You can repost other businesses content that you really like. You can repost, maybe you're like us and you do B2B. Actually, I literally just did this yesterday. One of our studios that we have posted a quote, like a positive quote. So I just reposted it on our story, and I was like, "Love this," and then said a little thing about the quote, and then just put it up on our story. I mean, it's the small things like that that draw other people to doing business with you.
right. And it's also supporting a B2B company that we work with,
Hmm.
right? Now also we're a B2B and B2C company,
Yeah.
right? We're B2B, B2C, and they're interconnected. So like we
Hmm.
have clients who are business owners, and we have customers who are our customers are the customers of our clients, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Right?
Hmm.
So we really take this kind of two-prong approach to hit everybody. Um
Yeah.
so everyone's situation is very different, I guess. And talking about that video, I think after each one of these where we talk about like Instagram,
Hmm.
maybe you should go in and do like a video, like an actual like how-to video on like showing people where things is, like how we normally do things. Even just use a dummy account to make it easy so there's like not a bunch of junk to like
Yeah,
in a way showing people stuff. And then maybe we could do that for all the platforms as we talk
yeah,
about them
one hundred
to give
percent.
them some visual cues. Because now you could we'll take this call, this conversation, and then you could go and say, "Oh, cool. These are the things I want to talk about," and just
Mm-hmm.
and then
Hundred
just do a
percent.
quick video, like how to. I think that would be really cool and very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I agree. I 100% agree. I'll definitely do that for everyone because I think it's very important to
Yeah,
fully understand the social media that you're working with. And I, even if the video probably won't go fully in depth, it's more of, it will probably be more of like a basic beginner video for the people who
yeah,
don't know or don't really know how to use Instagram for business. Because using Instagram for personal life and using Instagram for your business are completely different things. I was like, "Oh yeah, dad, I got the social media. I mean, I use Instagram every single day." And then there's still
and
a
I
learning
laughed,
curve.
and I
Yeah,
laughed.
yeah, exactly. It's a completely different ball game, completely different. I mean,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, if you use Instagram every day for your personal life and then like it makes the transition easier than someone who has no idea what the fuck
a
Instagram is.
a million times easier,
Yeah.
right?
And that's why I
Because
took it on.
yeah, I'm like I know what Instagram is. I know Facebook. I
Hmm.
personally don't spend a lot of time on social media.
Yeah,
When I do, it's very specific. Non-business social media time is like pretty much zero,
yeah,
non-existent, even
definitely.
before I had the business,
Hmm.
right? I'm just odd like that. That's whatever. But
Hmm.
so for me, it's like new. So I got to learn everything, everything, everything. And
Yeah.
I feel like people in my generation, they're probably going to kind of be in a similar type of a boat. So
Hmm.
that's what I was thinking. If you just went in and did a quick thing, like, hey,
Yeah.
so one of the things that we do is stories. This is how you get to stories. This is what
Hmm.
you do to. This is what a story looks like. This is how you pin it. This is what it looks like to make it. Da 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 da.
Yeah, hundred
And just
percent.
like click, 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 real quick, and then be like, okay, and then don't even necessarily have to go through make every little thing. Just
Yeah.
like if you want to do a post, you click here, here, here,
Hmm.
and then you do this, and think about hashtags and da da da, and then go to the next thing, and then it's this and this and this. Just super short and sweet, right? And like this is our Instagram one. We're gonna
Yeah.
talk about this first. Talk about that. Now we're gonna do this, then talk about that. Then now we're gonna
Mhm.
do this. Maybe you could do like that time chop up thing
Yeah, 100%. No,
too, like that. I
yeah,
think
I
that
can
would be
definitely do
very
that.
helpful for
Yeah,
me.
for
I
sure.
mean,
Yeah,
other people, not just me.
yeah. I will definitely do that. But what you just said actually brings us to into we have a few last points here. One of the last things I want to talk about is the insights. And then touch on hashtags a little bit. Um, so with the insights on Instagram, they are very helpful. They're very useful, especially if you know what you're looking at. I'm not gonna dive too deeply in on like the exact breakdown of them, mostly because I don't have it in front of me. I will save that for that video because I
Yeah,
feel like when I can show you and point and be like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This section right here, it's gonna be a little bit easier for you to understand instead of me just saying it and then you having to go look on your own. Especially when we're talking about insights, that's something that you want to make sure that you get right. If you want to get your data and analytics right when we're talking about social media, that way you can have a good plan of action moving forward for your Instagram.
yeah, and it's just
And
you just really have to understand what you're looking at. It's
exactly, yeah,
it's that's all. It's not that complicated. If you
no,
look at it, you're like, but then some of the stuff after you learn about it, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that this and this connect. And yeah,
yeah,
it's
like things
I
like yeah,
thought I understood the analytics very well, even though I don't understand how to do this stuff,
yeah,
right? And then Kyle dove in more, and then him and I started talking, and I'm like,
yeah. And there's, I
So
mean,
I'm
there's
like,
a
but that's not my
whole
lane. That's not my lane, so that's
exactly,
okay. But you know
yeah.
what I mean? It's constant learning. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, there's whole different types of different analytics based on certain things, and then with hashtags are super valuable. There is such thing as overusing hashtags on a post. That is a real thing. It will dilute like your description, which is also very important that you need to maximize on. Is
How many hashtags should we use for one post?
normally like 5 to 7 is probably
Okay.
max. You don't want to go any higher or lower than that. Or you can go
You can
lower
go
than that.
lower,
That's
but you don't
okay.
want to go
But no
higher
higher
than
than that. I
7.
apologize. Yeah. 7 is even like kind of pushing it.
Well,
We have
because
like
doesn't it
we have
it's
five
like
sticks on every post.
yeah, it like shows the post and then shows all the hashtags underneath, right?
It's in the so yes, like you say if you make your post, you see this is why I do social media. You have the post go up like that, and then there's a little description, and then after the description is where the hashtags are, and it's
Right.
part of the description. Yes.
Right. So like I've seen posts where there's like 15 hashtags and it's like a one sentence post. And I'm like, dude, there's more hashtags than words in the
Then
post.
yeah, and you have to and you have to and to for Instagram, especially like if your description runs too long, it'll say like more, and then you have to click it and actually go and finish reading it in the comment section. And a lot of people don't do that. And the description is just super important and valuable to because you don't want to overcrowd your main post. You don't like overcrowding that is like your one of your biggest fears. Like you can't make it too crowded so that way people are like when they look at it. So that description box is where you can put the extra stuff that you don't want to put in your post to make it overcrowded, or to help explain the post a little bit more and elaborate on it that you weren't able to because you don't want to make it overcrowded or too complicated or too long. Um,
Makes
and
sense.
so that description box is your best friend in order to help this to describe things. And if you put too many hashtags down there, and as soon as people see that more, they're not going to want to click it, and they're just going to keep scrolling by and like whatever. And
That makes sense.
yeah, and there's a good the way we use Metricool for a lot of our posting just because it's easier to post on every single platform. That we've talked about that in our tools one. There's a link there. Make sure you go
And
check it
it's
out.
free too, right? Like they
Yeah,
have like
yeah, it's
you can
free
do
as
like
well.
5
Yeah, I think it's
accounts
like 50
all at once
posts a
for
month
free. Yeah.
for free, which is super
The
nice.
paid
But
version is not that expensive either. I just don't
Mhm.
like to tell people they get the paid version of anything.
Yes, exactly.
But
Yeah.
like there's a forever free one that you could really spend a lot of time playing around with just one platform
Yeah.
and really get a lot out of it and learn how to use it before you even think
Mhm.
about paying for it.
Yeah, and they have a lot of analytics tools that we use as well that are really helpful. And one of them is it has analytics for which hashtags you're using, and those are beyond useful. Like those are insane. That is insanely useful. And so that's another reason why we use Metricool is because their analytics are so great. It literally shows you like how much reach you got per hashtag, so you know which ones are actually doing great and which ones are not doing great. And so that's definitely something else that you want to think about too. Like, are my hashtags doing anything? Are they actually reaching more people, or is it just my post that's reaching more people? Or is it just because I have more followers and I'm reaching more people? Are these hashtags not actually helping me? That's something that you also need to look into as well and dive into analytics will as well, because you can't if you just keep slapping on hashtags, just slapping them on, then it's not if it doesn't help you, then what's the point of even putting the hashtag in the first place?
100%. You know, the more you talk, the more videos I'm making a list of, right?
100%. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I really wanted to cover today with Instagram. Um, there will be a video coming out shortly, maybe within the next week. I would say after this comes out, there'll be a video really breaking down Instagram, and there'll be videos for when we talk about Facebook and when we talk about TikTok and any other social media platform that we really feel invested in diving into. But is there any last thoughts that you have on Instagram and what we talked about?
To spread love, stay away from the hate.
100%.
Don't get involved in nasty conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just kick them off, block them, kick them right off. Doesn't matter. Like, keep poison out of your feet.
100%.
Other than, I mean, keep everything positive and happy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people, the news sensationalizes negativity because it gets them viewers. But those are not the type of people you want. You don't want people viewing your page and liking your page and following your page because it's sensational stuff. You
Yeah.
want them to view your page and follow your page and like your page because it's you, your voice, who you stand for, what you like. You're putting up, this is who I am, right? And don't try parlor tricks to get people in because those people don't keep they're not the people, they don't stay. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And just like it's you want to build your brand online so you can build brand loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can get people in, right? Stay away from the easy looking like overnight tricks, like I'll call them parlor tricks
100%.
or whatever tricks. Stay away from that kind of stuff because anything that it may work, but it will be very, very temporary,
Yeah.
right? And it can jack you up in a lot of different ways and screw up your brand voice and all kinds of things because those tricks always involve they're tips and tricks that
Mm-hmm.
involve doing things that you shouldn't be doing necessarily to grow your base properly. So you'll get people to come on, and then you'll get a lot of traffic, but you're not going to get any business from it, and you're not going to get any consistent traffic from it. It's going to be people like someone's going to like your, you might get 100 likes one day because you put up some crazy thing about this goofy story, like a shark attack story, and you might end up getting 100 people that like your page. They're not going to do business with you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like that's my
100%.
point. Like you're not trying to be a generalized influencer. You need, right, which whatever. I don't even want to talk about that. But like you own a business. You want your business. So stay away from all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Right? If you have like reach out to us, like is it what do you guys think about it? Have you heard of this? What's your opinion on this? Hit us
Yeah.
up anytime. I'll
Hmm.
dive into something and spend hours and hours and hours diving into a rabbit hole on something just to answer a question for another business
Yeah,
owner.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
definitely hit us up. But yeah, stay away from all that goofy stuff. There is no overnight anything. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
100%. And I guess the last little point I want to make on top of that is, if inevitably you do blow up, make sure that you're prepared for it. Make sure that it stays within your brand voice, or else you're gonna have to completely change everything that you're doing. Just make sure that, like you said, like you have a good, because you might just blow up just because you're gonna blow up and you made a really really good post, and it has nothing to do with hopping on a trend, or you just made a really good post that was really amazing, and now you have all of these people that are like, we want more. You know what I mean? And
But you have to be
just
prepared to do more.
exactly. You just
You
have
have
to
to
be
have a
prepared for
plan.
that. Make sure you
Yeah.
have a good base going for that. Because as soon as you got that base, then no matter how big that you grow, you'll be okay and you'll be able to thrive. Well,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for watching. Make sure to follow us on social media. Small Business Revolution on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening on. You can go listen on many more. Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio. And we will catch you guys next time. Peace out.